So let's start with a master story. The first one's my definition, and then there's another definition that I discovered. A single enduring cord comprised of many golden threads. I'm going to unwind that in just a moment, but from Rabbi Michael Goldberg, a core foundational story that gives, and then it was specific to religious faith within the quote, but really anything, their basic model for understanding the world, their elementary convictions about reality, all the deep-seated assumptions and expectations that guide their actions. I'll read that one more time. A core foundational story that gives adherents of a religious faith, but fill that in with everything, all that is, their basic model for understanding the world, their elementary convictions about reality, all the deep-seated assumptions and expectations that guide their actions. So who they are, what is real? The way I see it is that each one of you, every single person here, came with so many threads of identity. There's so much, you contain multitudes. There's so much to who you are. There's your biography, there's your family and your relationships within and dynamics within the family. There's your friends and dynamics with your friends. There's all the stories that you've consumed over your life through books and films and poems and music. You've amassed an incredible amount of story. And when you do an inventory of that, and there is a full process that you can go through where you unpack all these stories that you've consumed, all these things that you've decided are real and true, American history, physics, all of that stuff. It's all story, which is not to say that it's not true, it's the exact opposite, but it's still stories. All of that is who you are, but there's this thread that weaves through it. Look at your life right now. Up until this moment, you sitting in this chair, there's a bunch of really crazy stuff that happened in the past. That while you were engaged in it, you were thinking, I'm lost. This is not what I intended. I went to school for this, and I'm doing this. Or, why did I go on vacation there? That was crazy. But if you look at it from the privilege of where you are here, and you look back, you see that each of those twists and turns got you here. So there's a golden thread that has taken you through all of that. Almost a theme. But a theme is to blanket. A golden thread is what weaves through. Well, each of you have a thread. Each of those threads can then be woven together into a cord, which is this room. This room is Westminster government. So there's a cord, a golden cord, that is Westminster government, which if I did a narrative inventory of each one of you, and we were able to feed that into some algorithm and see where things overlap, we would find a golden thread of Westminster government, which is a thread to Westminster. Because now we need to expand it into all the residents, we need to expand it into the businesses that are here, we need to expand it into doing the narrative inventory of the city. Weave all that together, you've got a big fat yarn. And it goes out further and further to Colorado, to America. What is the master story of America? And when we can really identify the master story of a place, we understand where people are standing. We understand where they are right here. And Colorado, the country, there's a lot of tension between different master stories of what this country is. There's pull between, no, it's this, no, it's this, no, it's this, when in fact the tension is a part of the master story. So, engaging in the master story is a very fruitful experience. To be able to say that whatever someone's shouting from the back of the room during the meeting, that sounds at face value as just another complaint, and you know that guy. He comes to every meeting and says the same thing. That's a part of the master story. Listen. Listen to it in a different way and try to figure out how it factors in. And the way to do that is with this, narrative density. Narrative density and the golden thread. So think about density from a physics standpoint. It has mass. And something that is dense has mass, and it has mass that's squeezed together in such a way that it actually has a gravitational pull. So we're on the planet. The planet is more dense than this microphone. I'm not going to do it. But we know what happens when I let go of the mic. Because the Earth is more dense, it's going to attract the microphone. It looks like falling. The same thing works with narrative density. When there is a story, or I would even say an image, or a word that describes an image, that is incredibly dense. And what it means by dense is it has many golden threads that are attached to it. So I can say anything. I can say bell tower. You all just shot golden threads to the bell tower. It has a certain relevance to you. I do that in Westminster, England, and they go to a different bell tower. But bell tower is the word that I used. So it's narratively dense for this group and in Westminster, England, or in any place where there's a bell tower, or with people that like to read stories that involve a bell tower. Everything has a certain density. Certain things are particularly dense for the person that is either listening to the word or saying the word. So when you attend to narrative density, listening transforms. So you are listening to me in a certain way, and I encouraged you to listen to me by looking in the way in which I'm walking, this sort of waltz that I'm doing right now, and the gestures that I'm doing, the look that's in my eyes, these wide eyes, this openness of magical storyteller. And the words that I'm choosing to say, along with this sort of soothing and for some of you sleepy tone that I've offered right here. I mean, I can pick it up. I can get a little song and dance here, but all of that is giving you a gauge of narrative density, and every now and then I grab you. Pay attention to when you are grabbed, because I just said something that was narratively dense for you or for me. And the next step is to figure out which one and how. When you read a novel, there's a narrative, it's filled with narrative density, but they're all on the same golden thread. If you're experiencing a novel that, maybe a first-time novelist, and they have a really interesting story, and it's got all this really rich, dense stuff, but it seems to bounce around a little bit. They're not practiced yet in arranging it into a golden thread or being able to identify what the golden thread is. You know that you're experiencing a golden thread because your shoulders drop and you feel like you're on a ride. It's very pleasant. And you know when you're in the presence of something that is narratively dense because your heart opens in a certain way. It's not that it's pleasure. It's just your heart opens and says that thing that was just said. And we'll practice a little bit of that in a moment, and then do quite a bit of practice in the workshop. And they tend to be pretty tangled. If any of you have read fairy tales, real fairy tales, not the cleansed ones, the ones that have been all cleaned up for mass audiences, the actual get into the Grimms or the Russian fairy tales or any of those, they seem like they just sprawl. They're all over the place. The hero or the heroine they're over here and engaging with this individual and getting the magic comb, and then they're over here and engaging with this magical creature, and they get a cloak, and it's just like, and then slaying one dragon and then slaying another, and it just seems like it's wandering all over until you get to the point where you all are sitting in your chair and you can look back and say, oh, I needed that comb, I needed that cloak, I needed to have all of those experiences. At the time it felt like wandering, but now I see it's all connected. It's all right there. So there's a measure of trust that's involved in this process as well.